Good day, all you beautiful dreamers, keepers, and reptile enthusiasts. It's the conductor from Sky High Moors, rolling with the Show Me Reptile Show. So tonight we got a special guest and a special co-host. But first, I'm going to go ahead and bring out my special guest tonight, and that is Craig from Bash Coder. So hold on one second. Let's go ahead and bring him out. How you doing, Craig?
Hey, good to see you, Brian. How are you doing?
Doing excellent, doing excellent. Um, so I also have our special co-host. I'm going to leave him backstage a little bit. First, I'm going to go ahead and give a little bit of shout outs to everybody that is out in the comments tonight. First off, we have Wayne from Kryptonite Dreams. Thanks for coming out, Wayne. Then we got the boss man. Thank you for coming out, boss. Then we have Steve from Reptile I Am, the general himself. Thank you for coming out. He's also working the backstage. We also have Clowning Around. Thank you for coming out. Nikki from Irresistibles. Thank you for coming out. We also have Having a Ball. Thank you for coming out. And that looks like everybody right now. As you guys roll in, you know I'm going to go ahead and pull you up on stage. But we're going to go ahead and get with the questions. So, Craig, what inspired Bash Coder and Bash Coder Reptile?
Well, do you mean the name or just getting into reptiles?
The name and what does it mean to you?
Yeah. So it's an old gamer tag of mine. But I actually do code in a programming language called Bash. So I am literally a Bash coder. But it means several different things. I did music under that name, and I did other stuff under that name. So it's just something that's stuck with me over the years.
Okay. And so then the whole reptile thing, how did that evolve out of this? Because if you were originally doing coding, you were doing the technical side, how did the reptiles come to be?
Well, my daughter, she and I were kind of going through a rough patch, my teenage daughter and at the time, and I needed to do something that we could do together to sort of help bond, and she was talking about how she wanted to get a snake. And so I thought she was serious. It turns out she wasn't serious, but she was just trying to get a rise out of mom, you know? And so I went and I started studying all about snakes and try to figure out what would be the best one to get her. And then talked Sophia into allowing it in the house. And then I told Christine, my daughter, hey, you know, I've got you a snake. And she was like, oh no, what does it eat? And I said, well, they eat, you know, rats and mice,
Right.
and those are her favorite creatures. And so she was kind of out. So then I'm stuck with a snake, and actually just fell in love with it and just enjoyed it, and just found it to be just a really fulfilling hobby, and just really enjoyed, you know, the morphs, enjoyed taking care of them, enjoyed growing them up, you know.
Right.
And so then I started getting into lots of other different species. And so, you know, I got into, you know, different kinds of boas and different kinds of pythons.
Okay.
And now I've got probably 10 or 12 different species.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
So
So
you're not just ball pythons. Now, do you breed the other species?
the only other species I've successfully bred so far is Sumatran shorttails. And so, so those are, you know, cousins of the blood pythons, and so I just had my first clutch this year. There should be hatching around July 4th.
Awesome. So that's something to be looking out for from your facility, because
Yeah,
you know when everybody in the reptile community, they think you just breed ball pythons. So hearing
right.
that you're doing other things and you actually have a clutch in the incubator, that is exciting. That really is. Now, where along the lines did you become the whole technical guru? Because we do now look at you like the tech guru of the ball python world, of the reptile world. When do you feel that took effect?
Well, I used to have a career as a recording engineer, record producer, 2 careers ago. So I spent most of the '90s in recording studios,
Okay.
and um, and I went to school for music production and engineering, and so um, I I um, I just sort of have an aptitude for microphones. I'm not really great with video, but I'm learning, but I help people with their sound. I help people with their video and lighting and stuff like that. And so I have this AV Club chat group on Instagram, and then I also have the AV Club Patreon. And we just help a lot of podcasters and other folks that just want to make content, try to make crispier content.
Hey, well, you do an excellent job at it.
Well,
Um,
thanks, man.
so for somebody that's just getting into the reptiles and that, what would be your best advice for them posting good pictures or good content? Because it is kind of hard to break through into this industry, and good content, good crisp pictures, especially of your animals, is key. So what would be some of your advice to give them?
Yeah. First, I would say, um, don't stress so much over your brand initially. If you're just starting out, get comfortable with the animals, and definitely um, post pictures on Instagram. These days, phones are so good that your Instagram short reels and your pictures taken from a phone are going to be great. Um, you know, uh, just learn a little bit about lighting, learn a little bit about how to take good photos, you know, um, and focus on sort of sharing your journey with people. Um, I wouldn't necessarily stress, you know, dialing in your company name or your logo and all that first things first, learn the animals, learn their care,
Yeah.
um, learn the morphs, and then share what you're learning with other people.
Right, right, right. So, with everything that you are doing in the reptile community, because like you were saying, you do the AV Club on Instagram, you have the Patreon, you do the reptiles, you breed not just ball pythons, other things. You do have a full time job as well, I assume.
Yeah.
So, something has to pay for everything.
Yeah.
So where do you find time for yourself and to enjoy just off time between everything that you do? Because you
Well,
also just did epic too, didn't you?
yeah,
So go ahead.
it's hard. But basically I get help. The number one thing is I get help. So I have someone who works for me who does a lot of the animal cage cleaning and cleans all the rodents and takes care of the rodents. And so he spends 2 days a week here. And we've got about 150 animals, and he does an amazing job. And that really frees me up so that I have a life.
Okay.
In addition to, it costs money, but the last few days, my wife and I were able to go to North Carolina for a few days, and that's
Wow.
only because I have help and I don't have to sweat whether or not my snakes are being taken care of,
Right.
and the rodents, which is harder than the snakes, as you know.
Oh
It's
yeah.
you know,
The rodents is definitely a more full time job than the snakes. grant, you do your daily checks on your every animal in my collection, and I'm sure you do the same. But
Yeah.
those rodents, you got to make sure you're on them all the time, because if not, they can get out of hand very
Yeah,
quickly.
very quickly. And I've had a few disasters on those with rodents. Right now, we're doing really good. We've got good numbers being produced, and everybody's healthy, and it's all good.
Okay.
But
But
yeah,
yeah,
I honestly,
honestly,
I'm getting
I'm
echo.
getting that.
Um,
Um,
I think that it's important um, to set boundaries. And so, for a while there, I was on a lot of podcasts and doing a lot of things. It's very easy in this hobby to do more stuff about it than you're actually doing it.
Right,
You
right,
know what
right.
I mean? Like, it's very easy to be all about the
Yeah,
reptiles,
yeah.
but not actually be doing the reptile stuff. And at one point, my husbandry was starting to fall behind a little bit because I was so busy doing stuff about reptiles that I wasn't actually
Right, right.
giving enough time to them, you know?
Right, right, right. Now you just said you and your wife just took a trip. Did you want to talk a little bit about the trip, and what was your favorite part about that trip? And so, pretty much my question for you is, what is your thing to do when you're having fun? Because I'm sure when you were on your trip with your wife, you wasn't focusing on all reptiles all the time, and
That's
then
right.
so what do you do for fun?
I have lots of hobbies. This week we went to North Carolina, where my wife is an author. She writes sci-fi fiction, and so she went to a conference where they were presenting awards and saw a bunch of her friends, and so I went with her to that just to support her. And the best thing about it was just it's beautiful up around Asheville, North Carolina. It's terrible what happened to the city after the hurricane, but it's really it's really amazing up there. And then, in my spare time, I like to make music. I like to do ham radio. I know Morse code and can talk around the world on ham radio, and that's pretty
Cool.
fun. That's an old man's hobby. We're
Yes.
dying out.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is.
you
So,
know?
right. So you do have other hobbies besides just the reptiles and that.
Yeah.
And the ham radio is actually something a lot of these younger kids wouldn't know anything about, and that which us older gentlemen know. That's what we grew up on. That was what we did
Yep.
in our spare time. And let's see how far we can get and talk to maybe Florida, or if we could get around the world, somewhere around the world, that was amazing. So
Yep.
could you tell some of these younger kids what exactly ham radio is and what that means to be a ham radio hobbyist?
Yeah. So you learn about electronics, you learn about radio waves and how they go up into the atmosphere and bounce back down. And you learn different ways of communicating. You don't have to learn Morse code anymore. I just do it for fun. I'm pretty fast at it. And you can communicate with Morse code. You can communicate with your voice. You can communicate with just your computer, just computers talking to other computers. But we use radio as a modem, so we connect one computer to another computer and we type to each other. But, dude may be in Russia and I'm in the US,
Yeah.
And so it's a bit of an achievement to do that anymore. It seems like, there's an argument to be made for it doesn't make any sense when you can just get on Skype with someone or, get video
Right.
like we are right now anywhere in the world. But it's the achievement of it, and it's the
Yes.
trying out different kinds of antennas and trying out different kinds of radios, and it's a fun endeavor.
And if for the younger generation that don't understand, is if you're also into social media, which a lot of you guys are, it is the grounding. It's actually the foundation of what social media was built off of, what the internet was built off of, is these radio waves that Craig is talking about. You know,
Sure.
I mean, that's what it back in what can you tell us? Actually, here's a good question for you, Craig. Could you tell us exactly when did radio waves and the first ham radio become a thing?
I'm going to search that. I'm going to say Marconi radio first transmission 1895. Is that
1895.
right? Yeah, he won the Nobel Prize.
Wow.
But Marconi is the one that's really invented radio, and so it's really fun. I used to have a radio show in college, a jazz radio show, and so I've always loved radio, everything about it.
Okay. Well, I am going to play a couple sponsor videos real quick, and
Yeah,
then
man.
when we come back, I am going to bring out our special co-host. All right,
Awesome.
then go ahead and play this one. All right, and that is all our sponsorship videos right now. And so I'm going to bring out Big Flexin from Chris. Well, I thought he was there. Chris, are you there? Well, once he gets backstage, he must be a little bit busy. I'll bring him back out. Oh,
Cool.
there he is. All right, you there, Chris? Your mic's muted, bud.
Yeah, what's going on?
Hey, Chris.
What's going on, Craig?
So everybody, this is Chris from Big Flexin. He's going to be one of our co-hosts or special co-hosts for tonight. Chris, did you have any questions that you wanted to ask Craig?
So, Craig, that podcast that you're doing with Billy, what is that all about?
Yeah, it's really his it's his outlet to share, to answer questions. He doesn't give a flip how many people tune in, although it's very popular, and he just wants to help people, I think, with it, and it gives him a little outlet to be able to, if he sees some issue he wants to talk about, he can go on a rant here and there, and those are kind of epic. And one day he just asked if I wanted to co-host with him. And I said, sure. He and I are pretty close, and he's a real mentor for me. And we talk a lot during the week anyway. And so, yeah, he invited me, and I said yes, and it's been fun. It's been a few months now. And I really like it because it's sort of a community. He makes sure to say hi to everybody like you guys do. And it's a pretty loyal group of his loyal audience, and a lot of good questions get asked.
Yes, yes, they do. Now, what was it like when he first reached out to you and that? Because I'm sure he just reached out to you out of the blue, or was it something that he's talked to you about prior to him asking you?
No, it's just he called me one day and we just were talking back and forth a bit, and he sort of got around to what I thought he was going to ask me, and it was a real funny story because really who he wanted was Adam from Proper Royals. So he
Okay.
said, he goes, when I think about exactly what I want, and I thought he was going to say, when I think about exactly what I want, Craig, you're the one. But he actually goes, when I think about exactly what I want in a co-host, it's Adam from Proper Royals. But he already has a show, and I don't want to invite anyone who already has a show. So I told Adam that he got a kick out of it.
Oh no, that's funny. And you've actually did some work with Adam before.
That's right.
'Cause I've seen some reels that you did where you're in a hotel room and you threw, I think it was a bar of soap at a door. Did
He
you want
threw
to?
it at my door. Yeah. So we had a back and forth a couple Tinleys ago. It was pretty fun where we just kept bumping into each other. We were in the same hotel. We were across the hall from each other. And so we decided to make a reel out of it. Only I was just pretending that he was trying to find me and I was trying to avoid him.
Yeah.
And he was waking me up in the middle of the night and he actually did that, by the way. He threw it was like 4 in the morning. He goes, "Hey, Craig," and he throws a bar of soap at the door. And I heard it, but it didn't really register. And so in the morning, I saw his reel.
Oh,
So I made a reel pretending I woke up. It was pretty fun. But he was also a big part of Epic, and he's a core team member of Epic, and so he's really he and I have really been building a good relationship.
now speaking of Epic, how did that go? Because now that it is done with, and it was quite a few different episodes with a big, let's say big named people that came on there because they were big name people. So how did that go, and did it go exactly the way you were hoping it did?
We had a few technical issues, but by and large, it went really well. We were gratified. It was a good conference, and that's what we thought the reptile world needed, was just sort of a conference where I go to business conferences and Robin Markland from Redline Shipping, he goes to business conferences, and we were both talking about how that was kind of missing because we go to shows and stuff, but
Right.
we don't get to attend presentations. We just sort of catch up and hang out, but most of us are busy at our tables, and so I reached out to Adam, reached out to Nikki and Kurt from Irresistible Pythons, Robin Markland, also from why am I blocking? I'm blocking. Also herp collectors,
Yeah.
Mike from herp collectors, and then.
Didn't you also have Ed and Emily up there from Snake Discovery?
We didn't.
No.
We had Chris Eaton and Phil McLean from Strictly Business, and Chris Eaton, of course, from Fat Man Nation. That was the team that put it together.
Okay.
That's a good team.
Yeah. And then we had and all of us knew different people, and so we sort of all used our collective contacts to get those big names. And we got, oh yeah, I did say Adam. That one I remembered, Nikki. Thanks. But it was a good exercise. I can't believe it's already been, a couple months since since we did it. The goal is to do it twice a year, and so we're looking to do another one in the fall. That'll be a little different, and we're still working through the ideas, so I can't really talk about it yet, but we're going to do another one in the fall. And it was fun because it was kind of appointment television. We made 16 episodes in a 3-hour period. So it was only 3 hours long, but we made 16 shows in that 3 hours.
Wow. That's impressive. That's very impressive.
That's a lot of planning.
Yes. It was crazy hard. It was a lot of planning and a lot of coordinating, and yeah, we were
during that, all that planning and coordinating, what was the biggest hurdle that you guys had to overcome? Because I'm sure trying to get that many names in one place in a time frame to do that has to come with some kind of hurdles.
The hardest part was the tech platform, because StreamYard can't do it, what we were wanting to accomplish with 5 tracks going on at the same time and allowing people to change tracks and stuff. So the hardest part and the most expensive part was the platform that we chose to do it on. And we learned a lot. We're investing in our own tech now. We'll see if we're going to use our own tech for the next one, if it's ready, or whether or not we're going to use the same platform again for the next one. But yeah, we learned a ton, and it was difficult. The tech side was the most difficult part.
Okay. And as far as like the setups and everything for you, did everybody have their own setup, or did you guys provide a setup for everybody?
I was going to ask that question.
Yeah, everybody pretty much had their own setup, although I did help a couple people out with some microphones and stuff.
Okay. And can I ask, who did you help out with those microphones?
No, I'll keep that secret.
Okay.
But I have given a few mics out and stuff like that over the past few years.
You also just recently, I want to say it was about a couple months ago, did something with Keys and the Wiz over, I think it was in was it St. Louis or
Atlanta?
Atlanta, that was it. Now, could you tell us a little bit about how you guys did your setup and how you guys prepared for that?
Yeah. So basically, I used a Rode Procaster, or not. It's called just the Rodecaster, I think. It's an audio mixer, and so we plugged a bunch of these Rode microphones into audio mixers on a table, and then we had we had Keys, Canon camera into a laptop, and so with that laptop and all the mics, we were a full studio. And then I brought some lighting in too, but yeah, it was fun. We had we've done it twice now. The last 2 of Bob's shows in Atlanta, we operated live and interviewed people.
Now, did you have your soundboard with all your mics running through the same laptop as your cameras, or did you have separate laptops? Okay, so you ran everything through the same laptop. All right.
Yeah, but it was crazy. I had to use the phone for connectivity because it was difficult to do the to get good Wi-Fi enough to stream video and audio. But our 5G cell phone was enough.
Oh, nice. Because yeah, that was my next question, was how was the bandwidth? Because usually when you go into these reptile expos, and I'll say everything from a big one to a small one, it seems like as soon as you walk into the door, you lose so much bandwidth out from your phone or any device that you have. So how was the bandwidth from your 5G?
So it was just enough. Just enough,
so
it worked.
Oh, moving forward, do you think that's something that you're going to address, or maybe try to find a way to get better bandwidth when you're doing these podcasts from the live shows?
Actually, I don't know how many more live shows I'm going to do. I know that Mike from Herp Collectors and Keys and Wiz are going to do more. I don't know to the degree that I'm going to do more, because my goal is really to have time to speak with the breeders and to have my own table, which is cool. Mike had his own table at Bob's last time too. So he was kind of had people hold it down while he was at the table, and then he would come and do an interview, and then it was pretty cool.
All right, right, right.
But I'm either going to be vending or talking to people, I think, in the future.
Okay.
Chris, I have a question. Like, I thought you had your own podcast show. You don't?
I do. It's called the Reptile Workshop, but we've only done 2 episodes. And we have, when Epic came up as an idea, I just sort of pushed that aside for a while. But we're going to do more episodes this summer of the Reptile Workshop. And usually that is about it's not really a weekly podcast. It's a show we do once in a while. And we get a topic that's usually some sort of project that we can start and finish in 1 hour. And, we did, for instance, on Billy's mutation creation Patreon, we do a thing called the chopping block, right? And so we did an episode of the chopping block. And then we had Charlie on, and we did an hour on shed testing and what it should change about how we do things. And then I've got a couple other episodes that are coming this summer.
Okay. Now, because we've been talking a whole lot of technical side of the reptile industry, so let's go ahead and switch over to the actual reptile part of it.
Yeah.
So what is some of the projects that you're working this year?
I love the Ultramel, Hypo, Krypton, and Cryptic, Clown, that whole project I really love. And so I'm working on that this year. I've got some Freeway Clown Pied stuff, some Black Pastel DG Hypo. I love that combo. Getting into some Dreamsicle stuff.
Nice.
And I have a male that can do the Holy Grail, but I don't have the females yet. So I'm raising up some females that can do that. And so that's the kind of stuff I like. I'm pretty pied heavy. I really love pied.
Oh, nice.
So I have a lot of it.
Now, do you work a whole lot of clown projects? Because you say you're working the Holy Grail project. You got the male. So are you trying to work a lot of the clown projects as well?
I have some. I'm working clown pied and Hypo Clown Pied and Freeway Clown Pied.
Nice.
And then I won't make the triples this year. The only triple I have a chance at making this year are the Freeway Clown Pieds.
Okay.
Which I call that a triple. It's really not a triple, but it's takes 6 genes.
Yes, it does. It might as well be a triple, know, because you can't take a freeway and reproduce a freeway, so right there you can kind of consider it being a recessive in itself. So, but what keeps you motivated nowadays? Because I know a lot of people can get burnt out on doing it as hard as you do, with all the technical, all the reptiles, everything. What keeps you motivated?
When I do burn out here and there, but I try to keep kind of tabs on myself. I try to, I have close friends. I talk to Nikki and Kurt all the time, talk to Billy, and I really try to keep close tabs on that, because I think a lot of people leave because of burnout.
Yeah.
So, you know, just having a network of people who can remind each other that
Okay.
it's not all hard stuff.
Right.
There's you remind each other of why you're doing this, and you know, the work is hard. And so you have to have a passion. What I like to do to sort of rekindle my passion is just be with the animals and just handle them, work with them, pair them, you know, stuff like that. Just really kind of reminds me why I do the
Right.
whole thing. You know, it's easy to get lost in a bunch of work and not actually enjoy them.
Yeah, most definitely. And like Nikki says, we keep each other grounded.
Yeah.
Most definitely. And Nikki and Kurt, they have hearts of platinum. I will say that. Like they're some of the most awesome people. Besides, so I'm going to ask, what has been the most recent experience that you've had with reptiles that has released that inner child that's given you that excitement feeling from when you first got your very first ball python, or you got your very first boa, or so what has been your most recent experience that brought back that excitement in you?
After you answer this, Craig, I want to ask you a question going back to being burnt out.
Yeah. Okay. I think the most recent thing was the getting that clutch from my Sumatrans. That was just really fun and new and different. And, you know, it was a goal I had, and you know, and so that was really that had to be it.
Okay, now go ahead, Chris.
I was just gonna ask, like, do you feel like people are just getting burnt out, or do you feel like the market is being oversaturated with ball python, like people producing, lower end ball pythons or versus high end ball pythons? Like,
Yeah.
what is your take on that?
I think it's important to have constantly check your expectations and figure out if your expectations are realistic. And I don't mean, I'm not trying to, sometimes when people say realistic, it really means anti-free enterprise or anti-risk taking and stuff like that. And I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about, remember how set your expectations about how hard the work is, and set expectations about how what you can make financially in the short term. And I think people that get all stressed out about finances in the short term tend to make bad decisions and tend to this is a slow, long journey. This is the kind of thing where every step forward takes a year in a project. It takes a year and sometimes 3 years, as you're waiting for something to grow up. And these animals live 20 years, or more. And we want to get stuff done really fast, and we want to make all this headway, and we want to show all this progress. And when we don't show all this progress, and we don't feel like we're making headway because they grow slow,
yes, they do.
It gets discouraging. And when you have ball python clutches that don't hatch, or they're all slugs, and you had your hopes on this, or when you see prices drop, you spend $5,000 on a male and then it's worth $800, a couple years later, that really hurts. But I think it's important to have, keep your expectations, keep your goals achievable, and manage your expectations. And that is the key to fighting off burnout in my mind.
I would have made the drop like a big question on you, man, because I know that was a pretty big question. But
that's all right.
I was just trying to figure out, like, I've seen a lot of people, like, since I've been coming into the hobby, like, just getting burnt out, leaving, or just saying, like, ball pythons are being so cheap, so it's hard to sell ball pythons now. Like you walk in there, like at some shows, they'll have baby ball pythons for like $75.
Yeah.
So,
and that's frustrating. And a lot of times it shows, people hide the hets. They don't even say what the hets are. They could be double and triple hets, but they're just not. They can't use them in their projects, so they're selling them, and it looks like a banana, so they sell it as a banana. But the thing is, I think a lot of people are like, they set their goal like, okay, well, in year 2, I'm going to be selling $2,000 animals. Well, that's not likely to happen in year 2. A lot of times people take a very simplistic view towards their investment. So they think, well, I'm going to get 1.3 of this combo. And since they all cost $1,500 a piece, I'm going to make $1,500 babies. And that's not how it works.
No.
So it's you have to manage a depreciating asset. That the value of the asset depreciates as more get made of that special combo, right?
Yes.
So, but then they make babies. So, what you want is the quantity of them to grow faster than the asset depreciates,
right?
And that is really where that is really where the profitability comes in.
And
but
it's a balancing act as well, because if you do it wrong, you can teeter that scale where you're making stuff, but you're not moving forward, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. And, you'll talk to people and say, well, there isn't a way to do this wrong. Well, there absolutely is a way to do things wrong, I would say. And depending on what your goal is. So if your goal is to be profitable and you're making single gene codoms, those are not, unless it's a really awesome codom, that's a $40,000 male.
Right.
That does not add up to success. And I think a lot of people thought, well, I could just drop 10 grand in and get some snakes, and then later it will all pay off. But the fact is, you have to constantly be investing if you want to be profitable and move where the market is going. You have to constantly be holding back and investing. And holding back is very similar to investing, because it's an animal you're not going to sell. So that's a financial investment that you're making in your collection.
Right.
So yeah, I do think that there's people get out largely because they're stuck and their collection can't take them where they want to go. But also people get out because of life situations. I mean, this takes a lot. Okay. Someone gets sick. Someone has to move to a state where they don't allow things. They have to move into an apartment instead of a house. There's a lot of reasons why people get out. And there's a lot of reasons why people get in there. But if you're getting in just for profit, trade stocks or get into real estate or something. Don't do this just for profit, would be my advice.
Do you have any more questions for him, Chris?
I was just going to say I agree. And I wanted to ask you another question before he switched over to reptiles, but I think it's still the same. Like, what shows have you been to? Like, have you been to a Show Me Reptile show?
Yeah, and I've vended at Show Me's. We have one up in Gadsden, Alabama, and I've vended it at Show Me shows there. I like them; they're well run, and it's fun, and easy folks to work with. I've done some other ones too. I've been to a lot as just to build relationships. So I go to Tinley. I don't vend at Tinley, but I go there for relationships. I don't vend at Bob's shows, but I go there for relationships, to build my network and to build my knowledge. And it's, you can call up a lot of breeders, but they You know, if you can get there the day during setup day, get a VIP, you know, like during a setup day, or get in the VIP hours of a show me show before it opens to the public, you get really good quality time to ask, you know, good questions.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to get to a Show Me Reptile show because I hear Mickey, the way he runs his shows are amazing, and I'm looking forward to get out there and to hang out with, of course,
They,
the conductor, the general, you know,
Yeah.
oh,
everybody.
they definitely are. They definitely are. They are so much fun to go to, and just to vend at. I know we just got one up here in Marion, Ohio, and I went and I've watched so many. And this is what really confuses me about the market is that everybody says the ball python market is dead. But while I was out at these shows, I'm watching ball pythons flying off of people's table like craziness. And it's like, if the ball python market is dead, how are all these ball python smart people still selling them? You know,
Right.
it can't be dead. Um,
There's
so
segments of the market, you know, and for certain segments, aren't as profitable as other segments. But honestly, I think we need to be doing shows just because we need new people in the hobby, and that's where that happens.
yes, it does.
We need to be getting people into the hobby. We need to be pressing the flesh, and we need to remind ourselves why we do this. And you gotta talk with people, answer their questions. They're gonna be very basic questions. You know, you get a chance to think about all the mistakes you made when you were getting started. You go to a reptile show and meet people and talk to them. You have a chance to help people not make those same mistakes you made.
Exactly.
And
The
by
more,
giving good advice.
yeah, the more information we can give out, and that especially since we've been through it, so we can give out correct information. You know, the more that we can give out, the better. And like you said, going to these shows is and meeting the younger generation that's going to replace us. Because let's face it, we can't do this forever, which we would love to be able to do this forever, but we don't live forever. So the younger generation is our future. You know, so bringing in more generate that younger generation into the hobby is always a good thing. Um, Now I do have one more question for you. Usually I keep this lighthearted, fun question. So my question for you, which is my final question, is if you was building a baseball team of nothing but reptile breeders, who would be your top 3 pick?
We'd have to go with batter up balls, right?
Okay,
You'd have to
right.
go there. And then I would say Billy, because he's so competitive, you
Okay.
know. He's so competitive. And then who else? I don't know. I don't know. I think I don't know. Justin from Canova, he would be fierce competitor.
I believe Justin would be a fierce competitor. He would make a good manager as well for the team.
Yeah.
Uh, definitely pick some good team members. Now, with that, who would be your, let's say, your catcher, and who would be your main player?
Whew. I'd say Justin would be the pitcher. He's got that height advantage. He's got that wingspan.
Okay.
Billy would be the catcher, signaling back and forth with Justin, and then batter up balls would be the hitter.
Oh, okay.
Actually, if I'm right, it's his son that's really great, and his teenage son is quite the young baseball star.
Awesome. So that would actually be a nice team, nice, real well-rounded team too.
Yeah.
So for everybody that don't know how to get a hold of you, how can people get a hold of you if they wanted to purchase one of your animals? When you now, are you selling your animals already, or are you still building your collection?
Yeah, I am selling some. I'm holding back a bunch, but I do sell some. I don't really sell on Morph Market. I mostly sell on shows right now.
Oh, there we go.
Welcome back, Chris. So, so I've been able to sell everything I want to sell. I've been able to sell at shows, and I haven't really had a need to sign up on or to sell them on Morph Market. And then you can check me out on Instagram at bashcoder, one word, and same on YouTube.
Okay.
Yeah, that's that.
All right. And do you have any shows that you're vending that are coming up that anybody can want to see you live? They can come out and see you.
Good question. Maybe one in August, but I'm not sure, so I won't commit to it.
Okay. Well, Chris, do you have any final questions for Craig?
I just always want to ask this question. Like, if you could change one thing in the hobby section, what would it be and why?
Okay, this is the actual answer. This is the thing I would want to change. I'd want to change the regulatory environment. I just think that it's a big headwind that we have to face all the time, is the changing environment regarding how reptiles are regulated. You know, and you can have a state say they're fine, and then you can have a city say they're not, you know. And I'd love a broader audience to understand how awesome these animals are and how not creepy and scary they are, and to make an environment where we can confidently invest. There's folks that confidently invested in their berms and retics and stuff in Alabama and Florida and other places, and then had that taken away from them. So there's lots of things that you could change, but that, I think, would be the most strategic.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely agree. So with that, guys, remember, hard work, determination, and positivity, your dreams too can become a reality. Until next time.